Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So the other day I had a great conversation with this gentleman, ADDAMSON, and he had this interesting theory about a digital bank run. And now with this digital bank run, if you think about like a bank run, you think about like when everybody runs down to the bank and pulls all their money out in cash. Now the theory that ADDAMSON had, and I'm really going to try and have ADDAMSON on for an interview, but the theory that he had was that you got to think of like the possible contagion effect, especially when it comes to like the younger generations and the social medias, where like a particular meme might spread like wildfire. And it's amazing on how fast it can happen. So when you think about like what would happen when the herd moves like as fast as it can, what would that be like if they decided to start pulling all their money out of the bank? And how would they be able to do that? Now, again, I always think of like a bank run as when you go down to the bank and you try to pull all your money out in cash. But we're in a day and age where pulling all your money out in cash may not be a possibility for you. And if you think about like, why would you want to pull your money out to begin with? It's because you're afraid that you don't have access to your money or access to your funds. And maybe it's because you're worried about the particular bank that you're using, or maybe you're worried about not being able to access your stock account. Everything is done in a digital form. Now, granted, when you buy in stocks, most of the time, there is like essentially like a paper back to it. But a lot of these kids may get fearful of having their money tied up in, say, Cash App or something of that kind of nature and want to pull that money out, especially if they get fearful when they see all their friends doing it and their friends are, and telling their other friends to do it. And pretty soon you have this exponential networking effect that starts pulling all this money in a particular direction. And if they can't pull it out in cash and they don't really want to transfer it over to another account, what's going to happen with that? Well, I would assume that if you are worried about not being able to access your funds and you're worried about sending it over to another account with the same problem, you're going to try and spend your money. And so now I get to thinking about like, wow, what could happen if there was ever a situation in which that consumer demand was falling off a cliff and you put out this particular scenario, like this particular narrative, that you're not going to have access to your funds, you don't have a safe place to transfer your money to, and you can't pull it out in cash. So what are you going to do? You're going to start spending it. So that's what I was thinking. Now, ADDAMSON didn't have that theory. That was my theory. ADDAMSON's theory was much more like doomsdayer effect. And like I said, I would love to get his idea on his explanation on what he feels that this digital bank run could look like. This was just my idea after having this conversation with him, and I would love to get your idea on what you would think that a digital bank run would look like as well. If the contagion effect amongst like the younger generation started like all of a sudden pulling their money out because all their friends are pulling their money out, and you know how that works with them, what that would look like and what would they do with it. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to immediately say, like, I would spend my money on gold and silver. Well, if that started happening, then the price of gold and silver would start bidding up, and then you would not be able to get as much gold and silver. And since it was a panic buy, that really wouldn't be like a true market price, right? Not that it's a true market price now, but if you were to believe that today is a true market price, by doing something like that and everybody rushing into gold and silver or into, say, Bitcoin or other cryptos, same thing would happen. You would start seeing the exponential rise of these particular alternative currencies as they're trying to move out of their traditional bank accounts. I mean, that's one of the things that could possibly happen. I have a feeling, like I said, I think they would spend their money. I think they would spend their money before they had a chance to lose it. And if you are fearful of inflation taking place, then that would actually create an inflationary scenario as people are being in that panic buying mode again, as they were pursuing their stuff with their funds before they lose complete access to it. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling on now, but I thought that was a really interesting theory to think about. And like I said, I've been kind of rolling that over for the last couple of days, and I thought it would be a fun video to talk about and to see what you guys come up with as far as what you would think that people's behavior would look like if there was all of a sudden a scare of not being able to access your funds or that your accounts are going to freeze up. and you have that possibility that you won't be able to pull it out in cash, what would you do? Uneducated economist, you guys let me know.